Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the Acolyte season finale. Possibly series finale. We'll see what happens. But as you can see, I have this beautiful little magic card. I don't have anything that actually shows the sun on it. All right, I only looked for like 5 minutes, but this is it. This is what we got. This is the sun, our little boy who is choked to death. It's just dead. So the Acolyte, there are many things to discuss. I took notes again. Had to. I was serious about this one. I took the notes. I even went back to other episodes to check to make sure that things that were said in this one kind of match up with things that we have seen or have heard said in previous episodes. So we shall discuss. There's some good, there's some bad. I'll say I don't completely hate it, but there's a lot to discuss as far as the lore, and there's still things where I'm like, they don't bother me, but I'm like, I can see where some people are coming from. So of course that topic will be discussed, but first, let's get through the actual, just this show, just the writing and the characters and the story of the Acolyte. So of course I have my notes, and it starts with the most random thing. Why did Basil snap those wires? Like, was Soul just gonna kill her? Was that what was about to happen? Because I feel like I'm in the exact same scene from episode 6 where I was like, what was May about to do when she was gonna reach out on the speaker? Like, was she just gonna say like, maybe she was just gonna like say who she actually was? I guess that was her plan. Based on this one, that's kind of how I feel, because she was like, no, I'm not gonna kill Soul. I want him to own up to what he did. So now I look back at episode 6, I'm like, well, I guess that was her plan, which in no way, shape, or form could I tell, because we were kind of just up in the air, like, so she's not killing them, but she's not turning herself in. I don't understand what's happening here. So I thought that was interesting, and that popped into my head. But why did he snap those wires? Was Soul gonna kill her? I don't know. It was actually very confusing, because I'm like, well, he couldn't have been killing her, because we know his story. He didn't want to kill either of them. So was he gonna kill her there? Is that why Basil had to do that? Because now I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to literally every other thing that he has said and done, including in this episode. Was he about to kill her? So that's just in my head now, because I'm like, well, that's weird. That's just weird. But I don't actually know, so we shall see. The next thing I have, Darth Plagueis the Wise. That's the big one that I'm sure is going to piss people off a lot. For me, it bugged me mostly because of the fact that it was pointless. It didn't need to be in there. And if it was going to be in there, once again, this is like putting the episodes in the wrong order. I don't understand why you would put that scene at like the forefront of the episode and not just make it a stinger. Like, you literally could have taken that out and just literally put it at the end when they hold hands, and then it's just like a creepy dude is like, that old guy's like, yeah, what are they touching for? Like, you could have done that at the end of the episode. It would have been the perfect shot. They could, it's CG. You could just cut out the rock, like what he saw when they left on the ship. Just cut that little triangle out and just throw this scene in there. That's all you would have to do. Is just boop, there you go. Like, it doesn't even really have to line up. Nobody's gonna really track it from that one. A stupid chair already following me. So I thought that was super weird. I was like, why would they put it at the very beginning? Also, this is a 420 review, hence the baked sushi. Forgot to mention that, but you'll notice. So I was just like, why was he there at the very beginning of the episode? It's like, it's not a stinger. It's just like, oh, okay, like you see him, but he doesn't show up. I'm like, why would you do, like, it's a weird spot for a teaser when it's just like, it's like not giving us the answers with the answers episode. It's like things are just repeating in it rhymes, unfortunately, but things are repeating in like just different things, but it's the same repeat, where it's like, why didn't you just wait to do that when it was an actual stinger instead of it being at the beginning of the episode? And I know people still enjoyed it, but it just felt weird. I was like, okay. And then he doesn't play a part in the episode. So I'm just like, oh, well, that should have been a stinger then. Like, why show that so early instead of just make it a stinger? I assume they're on the same planet when at the end of the episode. So I'm just like, that seemed very odd to do it that way. So I thought that was super weird to have it so early on when he doesn't play a part throughout the rest of the story. But it was like, hey, season 2, it's there. And that's going to piss a lot of people off, because I know some people are going to be upset. People have already been mad about the whole Virgins thing, where it's like, Anakin is no longer the first one. And this is where I get into my philosophical Obi-Wan certain point of view. I still see it as different, technically, because they do mention, they're virgins and all that stuff. I still see it so differently, because the whole point I thought was that it was like a failure. Like, the Force still, they were virgins in the Force, but it's still not Anakin's story where he's like, the chosen one. He's still like a singular being. And then that's developed from Plagueis seeing it happen where it did fail, because they were splitting the two. So it failed in that sense. And then Plagueis tries to do it where it's like, okay, I figured out their mistake. Now I can do it better. And then the Force is like, all right, I have to like balance this out. So I still feel like it's different, because it took other people. Like Anakin was, I think I mentioned this in the last episode where I was wrong about that whole story, where I thought it was Plagueis that did that. It was because Plagueis was trying to do something else with Palpatine, and then the Force made Anakin. So I'm like, still different. I mean, it's still the same term because they do say there's still a vergence. So it's still the same term. So I could still see why, that upsets people, because it's not as separate. If it was a different term for them being split up, then it wouldn't, I'm sure it would feel a little different. But it's literally the same term as like a vergence in the Force. But for me, I'm like, they're kind of like the first step. They were like the failure of like, a true vergence in the Force. That's kind of the point of their thing. But I know a lot of people have been feeling like, even with the thread thing, where I was like, I don't see how this breaks canon. People have been feeling like this show is just trampling over all things Star Wars and lore. I don't feel that way because of all, despite all the issues, the actual questions were answered. Still don't like all the answers, but they were actually answered, where things just aren't plot holes. But it does lead to a lot of other questions where it's like, and I'm gonna be jumping around these notes. So being blamed for it, and then you have Minestra go to Yoda and all that stuff, and it's like, it still feels odd to be like, would Master Yoda just not notice that at all? Like, it does feel like something's missing there, where it's like, a lot of people died, and even if it's hidden, then you actually go talk to him at the end, whether she tells the truth. I assume it would be the soul story that she gave. And it's like, I just feel like Yoda is Yoda. Like you have, like, he's one of those characters where it's just like, some characters you just be like, I'm sorry, he gets a pass for automatically being better, because that's his whole thing. And so it just does feel weird to be like, oh, so she went and told him the soul story, and he couldn't figure out that was a lie at all. Like she lied. But it's not, if it was the dark side, I could be like, oh, dark side is cloudy and stuff, you can't see it. But it's like, it's not dark side, it's just like a normal lie. It's not a normal lie, but it's just a big lie. And I'm just like, I don't know. But one of the many things. So like Plagueis, he was standing there, and then they go off on their little ship and stuff. Then I have Minestra talks to, she talks to Mr. Door. So the actor was in Alan Wake too. I'm a huge Alan Wake fan. He was also a character in the Supergirl show. If you haven't seen it, he was an important character. He was pretty cool in that. So he was in that. Now he's Mr. Door in the Alan Wake game. So I was like, oh, Minestra talked to Mr. Door, and he straight up hates the Jedi. He even hit her with the "May the Force be with you" sarcastically, and I was like, dang. He's just like, I don't like you. I don't like what you think. I don't like what you do. May the Force be with you. Another one. And then he left. And I was like, not everybody likes the Jedi. I thought it was a cool scene. I'm a little biased because I like the actor, but I was like, I enjoyed that. He talked down to her and was just like, oh, okay. Like, I know, like, he can, can't sense it, so to speak, but he's just like, he had a very Lex Luthor moment where it was real, like, well, Superman's done all these cool things. Like, but what if he just stops one day? That's like Lex Luthor's whole thing is like, but what if he don't tomorrow? Like, but he did this like for the last 20 days. What about day 21? Why are you getting on my case? Superman, bad. That's how it felt. And I was like, I'll respect it. I'll respect that. So that was an interesting scene. She talks to him. She ends up in like the full outfit later when they go to do like the actual meeting. It had like the big Imperial symbols. Like, see, I got these on. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're all cool. We're good. We're the Jedi symbol. I said the Imperial symbol, but it's like, it's got the Jedi emblem on it. It's like, guys, come on, we're cool. So I thought that was funny too. It's like she had to get dressed to be like, my buddy was crazy. That's crazy. So going through, obviously jumping back to the beginning, we got Plagueis. When they get to the actual planet, why did Osha have control of Kamir's ship? That was another one. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, he's talking to her and then she just cuts comms, and I was like, okay, she cut the comms off, and then he like jerks the controls and nothing changes, and I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I guess she was in control because they, even from space, I guess that was why they did it. But I was like, at this point, how can he not sense where it's the planet? I don't know. Like, is there anyone else on the planet? Was it just the witches? Because I thought it was more than them, but when they did the flashback, they only showed the witches, and it didn't seem like they were in the city anymore. So I guess those were all witches, but I don't think they were. I wish I went back to look at that in the flashback, because I swear in episode 3, when they were talking about the spice, it was like different aliens in there, but maybe that was just like in my head because it's Star Wars, but maybe it was the witches the whole time. So I don't know, but I guess because he wouldn't have known, that's why she had control. And I just thought like that just seems weird in the moment, but I don't know. It just seemed weird because I'm like, well, he couldn't, like, he can't trick her, like if they're both in the ship, it's not like he could trick her. So it's just one of those weird things. Like, he'd be at a stalemate if he was just sitting over the planet. So I was just like, it in all aspects, it was like he could have, like, why wouldn't he just be flying the ship? But I don't know. It just seems weird also to risk the controls, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a weird balance. But I thought that was weird. I was like, why would she have controls over that when they're both flying down? Like, why couldn't she have secondary control? I was asking a lot of questions in that little moment, but one thing that was just a random thing where I was like, I guess, but that still seems odd. It just seemed weird, especially because it was like, he didn't turn off like the safety locks. Like, you never know. Like, just turn off the safety lock so she can't block you out of the entire ship. I'm like, that just doesn't seem smart. Even in this, like, yeah, we have a deal. I'm like, I don't know. It's like three of y'all trying to kill me. I got to make sure I can at least like spin my ship in a circle or something. It's like, he's strong, but I don't know. Although the next line I wrote is I put he fly now. I'm assuming he flew away when they were at the elevator, and I just put that because I thought it was funny. Like, obviously we saw him like float down in the episode 4, but I was like, he just took off, and I was like, that's kind of effed up, but it was also really funny. And she's just like, what? And he literally just flew away. I was just like, dang. It was something he said earlier. I was like, he's not an equal person or a fair person or whatever, but he got called out on that one. We did get a good fight. I thought that was pretty cool. And then right after that, I just put soul choked. So during this moment is where we have like the huge reveal. Obviously the fight was really good. I thought there were a couple moments for sure where I was like, oh, they had to spin there. They could have just cut right through. But all in all, I thought the fight was good. They even did like the slow motion crouching tiger, hidden dragon jump and everything. I was like, okay, that was a little too slow motion for me because they both looked a little stiff because it was like super duper wire work. But I was like, I can appreciate it. It's crouching tiger. I can appreciate that. But I did think the fight was actually really good. I thought that was actually pretty cool in the way they ended up going through things, cutting the lightsaber and all that stuff. They even brought out, like, you know, the mini blades and everything. We got a saber throw. You don't see that ever. Even in animation, would they rarely pull out like the saber throw? Like, it's super duper rare. So I was like, okay, I can respect that. I always like a good saber throw because you just don't see them. Even in animation, like I said, it's so rare. It's like, that's a video game thing. Like, the most time you'll ever see someone throw a lightsaber is in a video game. Like, Vader did it like once. You know, it's like, okay, like that's actually cool. I think, yeah, Vader was kind of mad though. That wasn't like a cool throw. He was kind of just like, and he just threw it. And I always thought that scene was hilarious. But anyway, fight was good. And then the conversation happens. And once again, I go back to having a couple questions where I'm just like, everything, you know, like Soul, he's just gone now, you know? But I'm still kind of with him. I'm still kind of on his side. Like not really fully on his side. But I am at the point of, even in this episode, they go through the full explanation. He actually talks about, you know, they even address the very direct thing of why Osha would not have been accepted. And I thought that was very cool. I was like, okay, they like flat out say the line, like, it was like, oh, she's too old. And then it's like, you know, it was the natural speculation, like, it's an insane incident. The only reason that they'll take you in is because it's like the whole family died, dark magic, and it's crazy. And that was it. It was a very rare exception, which could also trample some toes as far as lore stuff, where it's like, oh, they barely did it for Anakin until they did it for us. So I can see that upsetting people a lot as well. But I was like, okay, 100% addressed that. Even like, it's not up to speculation. It is like, as far as we're concerned, it is Soul's reason. It was like, hey, you would not have been accepted if we didn't go with the lie. And there's still 1/2 second where I'm like, he's being confronted. Even when May says it to him, like, so you killed her. I was almost shocked that he didn't say, I thought she was trying to kill you. Like, no joke. I was like, I thought they would go like the emotional beat. And it just seems crazy because I feel like despite his justification in that moment as to like why they did the lie, they technically still didn't really address his attachment. Like, they do for 1/2 second because he was about to say that he loves her. And I'm like, I understand that was like the thing, but everyone's still gonna be like, what was it that made him feel that way where he cared for the child? It was like, the situation isn't what made him care, you know? Like, he assumed from the beginning, of course, because he saw like a couple things, but the levels are different. It was like the things he saw were like down here, and his need to be like, I gotta get him, was like way up here. It was at like 98, and it should have been at like 2.5 or something. And so it's just like, that's that part specifically, I still don't feel was like justified as to like, why did you do that? Why were you so hardcore? Because the whole episode, he just kept saying, I did the right thing. That was like the one explanation. And I'm like, that's still only half of why he was like just attached instantly to like really feel that way. And that's why I mentioned before, I was like, I really wish they did his background where it was like wherever he came from, the Jedi had to save him. And I'm like, that would be the thing. But in this, he already had that. And then the justification for the lie was fully answered as far as like, we had to do this because of that. But that's the ending. That was like the second part of why this all kind of went down. Like, why were you so attached, you know, like instantly? It wasn't like from his past. It was just like a poof sort of thing that kind of came out of nowhere. And it's just like one of those things that definitely gets compared, you know, because he's been the Qui-Gon character that once again does get paralleled with Phantom Menace. And that's all I can think. But I feel like it's just not expressed. And that's why I'm kind of left in there. I'm like, I could make that connection because I've seen Star Wars Episode 1 and Qui-Gon kind of just said it like, I feel like I kind of have to teach this kid. But that wasn't really done in this show. And that's the unfortunate thing is technically we're kind of still just up to speculation. He of course loved this child that he ended up saving, but why did he love her to make that lie? Like instantly, you know, like it makes sense over the time that he tried, but still, for me at least, it was like we got half of it and I was happy about that. And I'm like, that's for four. That answer was for 4 characters. I want to know his answer. Like, that's what that was. That was for everybody. It was like, that's why we lied. I'm like, why were you so hell-bent though? That was the thing that really bugged me. So that got on my nerves. Another part that really bugged me was, and I had to go back to the episode because they talked about the girls, like basically confronting Soul, and it was like, you know, you locked everybody in there. Like, you started that fire. You locked everybody in there. May's response to that was because the Jedi were attacking, but she was told to basically get mad and stuff by her mom before the Jedi showed up. So, and you know, the way they do the scenes in order was the girls basically got split up. This is like after Torben and Soul left. There's still like at the wall, or actually, I don't think they're even at the wall. I don't think they were even at the elevator because that was their first thing. So their scene hasn't even happened. And that's where they have the moment where Coral tells May, like, you know, the Jedi won't tell you when they're going to attack, like, get angry. And then they cut to a scene where the guys are on the elevator. Or no, then that's when they show her, like, break the elevator. And then after that, they show Torben and Soul. So I was like, did they know that they were at the elevator? Because I can't tell that from that flashback. So when they mentioned that in this episode, May was like, you know, I did that because you guys were attacking. And I'm like, I went back to the episode and I was like, they didn't know that they were attacking. Like, the ship hadn't gotten there yet. So it's not like they saw the lights, you know, blaring over them like that. And they didn't show the scene of Torben and Soul at the elevator until after they already destroyed it. So I'm just like, I don't think technically, even based on what the show showed us, there's no way they would have actually known. She said like that was because they invaded. And so that's another thing where it's like, it's up to interpretation for me, I guess, where it's like, she says, I did that because you guys invaded. And I was like, well, does she mean overall? I guess that would be the argument. But it was just the odd timing on it. It's like, when you destroyed the elevators, it was like, because you guys invaded, so no one could get in and get out. That was her thing, I guess. But it was like, well, you know, just watching it in the timeline, the way they cut it, I was like, well, they didn't even know they were coming. They were literally like prepared to fight. Like, her mom literally says, like, grab your weapons, and then they show them at the elevator. So that's the thing that really gets me, because I'm like, they were already prepared to have a fight. This is when they were doing the argument where Anasea like sent the girl, where she sent Osha to their room. It was during that moment when she's talking to the other witches. And then Coral's like, yeah, get mad and stuff. Like, everybody, you know, everyone arm yourselves. You know, like, they haven't even shown them actually get to the side of the mountain yet. And they're talking about like, grab your weapons. They didn't actually know that they were going to show up that night. They just were doing, like, they were just getting their weapons just because. And then they just happened to show up because that's how they edited the episode. So that's how the story goes when you actually look back at it. So that's something to think about, because that kind of doesn't make sense why they were like arming their weapons. They didn't actually know the Jedi were coming back that night. So once again, things that were said, I'm like, could be overall, but then that just leads to that moment in that episode not making any sense, which I hadn't even thought of that when I was actually watching it. But you look back at it, they were getting the weapons before the Jedi actually showed up. And which means that was also when May was like, I'm gonna start this fire now, which was still a mistake, but you still started that fire. Man, you know, like, that was still extreme even that night. Even if they didn't show up, the fire happened. I keep thinking about that. That's where that weird middle ground comes from, which May does decide to apologize for. So I was okay. I'll give you that. But thought all of that stuff was super weird. The other Jedi get to the planet Venestra. Kamir knows Venestra, so that is true. That happened. She touched down and was like, "Oh my goodness, I whipped him like a slave." Boom, I remember. So we did that. We find out why May survived. They pulled an Empire, which I was like, all right. Once again, a random reference that connects to the old movies. She fell down like Luke did after his hand got chopped off, and just got sucked into a vent. Good to go. And she just had to crawl her way out, and she was good. And I was like, all right, answered that question. I'm okay with that. That was a decent answer to a question that I had, that we all had. And I was like, it is done. It is good. I like that. So, once again, going with the answers, we got some stuff that was just cool. That worked. And it was even a little reference with the Empire thing. So I like it. I can appreciate what I can appreciate with the show. And then right after that, which is super funny, going back to the CG of things. CG was great for the ships as they were flying through. All that stuff was cool. Then we get to the end of the episode where they clearly have a second woman and they don't do the CG on their face. Like when they're running from far away, like actually when they first come out, it's the actual actress and she's talking, and the woman who is playing May is the one who's silent. But it's like they're not that far away. That's why she was silent. Like she goes and puts her hand on the wall and then she kind of looks back. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Just because you don't make her talk, because that's, you obviously didn't put CG on that person. That was a long scene. Like they come out of the cave. I'm looking at their faces. And in some scenes, it does kind of work a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can see how they did it. But I'm just like, this is where I have to, we get to that money question. Everyone's been talking about it being like a money laundering thing. And it's super funny because I'm like, man, I know they had the budget, for the CG in the beginning, but they couldn't just like do a little face tracking at all during like the end of the finale. They were just, nobody's going to notice. Everyone always notices. Everyone sees it. It doesn't matter if you're in a fight. It doesn't matter if you're in a crowd. I will look over and I'll be like, Everyone sees it. It's one of the weirdest things that every human being has as a super skill. As soon as it's not the actual person, it's like, that is, nope, that ain't them. So that was weird. And that was a couple of shots where I'm just like, they're running towards the camera and I'm seeing this woman's face. I'm like, just they can't do a blur like an action movie. Like if you watch some stuff, you see some action shows, you will see that they like blur people's faces during action sequences. They did that on the CW quite a lot. It was actually very funny to see that. It was just like, oh, whole face blurry. They just would, sometimes that was just how they did it. It was like, we'll just make it blurry. You won't see it. It's half a second. It might be a YouTube compilation that I would highly recommend looking that up. I always found that funny. Love those shows, but that was always funny. And it was, I'm gonna tell you, it was Arrow. It was the action show. It had to be Arrow, but all the time I'm just like, blurry face, flip a dude over like right into the camera. Whole face is blurry. I'm like, well, that's obviously not Diggle. Hilarious. Good times. I miss those shows. But anyway, moving on with this. After they go through, they have the CG and all that stuff. This is where I wrote all the things about the last episode and the Jedi and stuff like that. May says sorry for the fire. They also don't know who taught them that rhyme. I thought that was just a random interesting thing. And then we have the big moment where it's like, all right, the official moment. I shouldn't say the big moment. The big moment was definitely choking out Soul and then admittedly having another cool scene where they bled a lightsaber in live action. It was even like out and you see it go from blue to red. And I was like, that I can love. I always love seeing that stuff. You don't see it very often. I'm gonna like that. That was very good. The next best thing to that would be someone taking the blood out of a lightsaber and then turning it into a white kyber crystal. That's how you get like Ahsoka sabers and stuff. So that was super cool. Once again, very awesome. And then we have, like I said, the ending, the full overarching transition of May switching places with Osha and then realizing May was the Acolyte the entire time. Or Osha was. My apologies. And I was like, okay. And, kind of the justification of 16 years being lied to, failing as a Jedi because of that anger she had towards her sister and not feeling like, it's justified, having all that anger like swell up, like it switches to the person that was there the whole time. And it kind of flips on you. It builds up. And so she goes crazy, hits him with the Force choke and actually kills him, bleeds her lightsaber, turns it red. And I was like, okay. It was interesting. Still, once again, that like half second of nuance of just being like, hey, I thought she was gonna kill you. I still feel like could have at least, it probably wouldn't have saved him. That's one of those very minute things where I'm like, I feel like I wish they just had a single line, even if it doesn't work. It's just like, Why can't that just be his justification? I thought you were going to die. Because that's what he thought. Like, he doesn't just say that. That's like a part of his answer, not the answer for like the whole crew. Is like, I thought she was going to kill you. That's why I killed her. And it's just weird that that doesn't come up. So we have our sequence. We have them officially switch places. The nuance is the part that's missing, although I'll say it's still a little bit there. She doesn't go like super crazy full dark side and just starts like trying to kill everybody. She still did the whole, you know, oddly enough, she did exactly what Soul did just in terms of this phrase, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He was trying to save those girls. He kind of broke them, got himself killed because of that. And then you have one of these girls who was his, you know, former apprentice is like, all right, I will join you down the path of the dark side and you let my sister go. So she still did something dark for a good deed. So she's not like full on dark. In season 2, perhaps we might get some answers on how that's gonna pan out, especially the Plagueis stuff. Maybe it doesn't matter. He gets what he needs and then they both get killed. It's totally possible that that happens. We shall see. But they go with a mind wipe. And then they kind of go with like, oh, you still remember some stuff from when you were 8. And maybe we can use that. So now it's like 100% like the twist, but she would be starting fresh. It's so interesting. Like, that's probably the most interesting thing. They mind wiped the character and that's how they made her good. And I'm like, there's so many things where mind wipes last for a certain amount of time and then they just kind of flip. And that would be like the one thing in my brain. This is, of course, what we've all done this whole season, is just make stuff up for this story. But the one cool thing I could possibly think would be if that failed like halfway through the second season and then Osha turned evil again. And like, it would be crazy, but I'd be like, you know what? If they used 2 dark side users plus, you know, they just have a bunch of them, I guess. I might be able to accept that. That won't happen because they would just do it where it's like, oh, she made that deal and then, you know, whatever. So I don't see that happening. But if there's one thing that would be cool is if they tried to, you know, they mind wipe her and then she becomes like the light side version, and then they still just flip it and she goes dark, and maybe that's how they merge. Science, who knows? Midichlorians, it's things that happen or may not happen. We might not even get a season 2, so we shall see. So after the mind wipe, we reach page 2. This is basically the end of the episode, and then I kind of called it, and I thought I called it last time in episode 6 when Kamira was like, oh, I used to be a Jedi, and it's like, oh, you know, that was almost it. It was like, oh, you know, they're gonna use him, and it's like, well, he was a dark Jedi or something. I thought I had it, and then it happened. It finally happened. A rogue Jedi. And I knew they were gonna do it. I was wrong about the character they were gonna use and exactly what they would say. Not dark Jedi. It was just a rogue Jedi. One sad man. It was just a broken man. Like, I don't know why Soul fucked up so bad. But it was only him. That's effed up. That's effed up. That was real messed up. And I was like, wow, he messed up. But dang, his whole legacy is just like tarnished. He killed I guess he killed the other Jedi that were there, and he wiped out the whole platoon of knights in Padawan, which, in a super dumb way, I guess makes that one dude's concept relevant. And I guess that's what that was supposed to be. When he made that dumb suggestion out of nowhere that was like, oh, you think it was Master Soul that did this? He's the only one powerful enough to do it. I guess it was supposed to be there. It wasn't just a random dumb thing. It's dumb. It's super dumb. But I think it has to be a connection, or that is the wildest coincidence of a wasted line I have ever heard in my life. Where he said that, and that's what gave Vanestra the idea to frame Soul, where it's like, he's the only one powerful who could possibly do this. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Why wouldn't you just think it was someone evil? Because it's just one broken man who had a reason to go crazy. It's like, wow. Wow. That's effed up. That was effed up. But he did justify his selfishness like the whole time. I did the right thing. He said that so much, and I was like, that's like the worst way to say you did the right thing, is to just keep saying that. But it was interesting. I was like, all right, that was an effed up way to do it. I'm still team like 2 extra sentences and not everybody be cool, but it's too late now. He's gone. Minds are wiped. Hands are held. And that's about it. And I put cool final shot because I thought that was the last moment. And then we had the extra thing, and I literally just wrote, because I knew it was going to be Yoda. It was, of course, Yoda. It's like, hey, we got to talk. End of the episode. I was like, okay. And also, they brought the chant back. I put that down there. People are definitely going to make fun of that again. It was like the super chant version. So that was something. But that's it. The Acolyte is done. Now that everything Disney, you know, when it comes to Star Wars and Marvel, it's like you think about both because you just think of that Disney track. We are 1 week away from Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's what's next. So if you're down on Disney, look up to the future. Look up to Deadpool, I guess. That's a weird thing to say, but you know, look up to Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's where we're headed. I'm excited for that. I can't wait to see how that goes. I'm looking forward to just some good action. The Deadpool movies I always thought had really good action, and I hadn't thought about that until like just now, but I'm actually excited for a really good action scene. I enjoyed what we got, so I'm not making fun of that. I'm just genuinely saying there's also going to be way more blood. You know, there's Deadpool and Wolverine. I want to see Wolverine like do some crazy. I want some Logan violence again with young Wolverine. We did get some cool X-23 stuff in that movie, but Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm very excited for that. I'm curious how things are going to go. I'm excited to see you. Once again, the chaos, the other reviews of everyone's thoughts and opinions on things. How, you know, some people are once again going to be super duper angry. A lot of the lore stuff. I think I'm not as deep into it. I've always liked when new stuff was added, and I don't feel like this destroys things, but I understand, like, even though I don't feel it personally, I 100% understand where people are coming from, where it's like, man, you know, George Lucas made it, and now they're doing stuff like pre-George Lucas that's like directly connected. It's not just like, oh, you know, Old Republic, Yoda kind of gets referenced. It's like, this is like right before George Lucas. Like, it's like some of the most critical stuff. I understand why people are upset that sort of thing's being changed. For me personally, it's not being that's the thing. Like, it's so hard to see it. It's got both ways. It's being changed, but it's like, it's just being added to. Certain point of view, all that good stuff. Doesn't mean it's being added to well. I'm not, you know, once again, that's, you know, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it just is. But it doesn't bother me as much. You know, once again, I have to admit, they gave us quite a few answers. They gave us pretty much all the answers were given. I don't know if I ever truly questioned that 100%. I knew they were going to do the Rogue Jedi thing. It makes more sense than, you know, the silly. I knew they weren't going to do literally like a last silly line, but I was like, that's the only way it makes sense, and that's exactly what happened. It was just a Dark Jedi or Rogue Jedi. I was like, that's the only thing that will ever make sense. It does still make it weird about the Caddy thing. It's like some stuff I feel like they put in that screwed them over, where it's like, dang, he really did not need to be there to even bring into question that sort of element where, you know, his birth date and being even tangentially involved in this, where, you know, he has that giant line that everyone was referencing, and it just feels super weird. I was like, they really didn't need him in there. Like, I feel like they just caused themselves a whole mess of problems and trouble. Just having him in there at all. And I was like, well, that was just one dude. He didn't even look like the dude. I thought it was just that species. So that's the crazy thing. It was like, it's not like you pulled off like the ultimate cameo and everybody knew, because his head looks totally different. So I was like, that literally looked nothing like him, even to me. And I was like, okay, so it's just his species. And then it was him. And it was like, oh, that's super weird. That makes it weirder. And he had no reason to be there. I can't think of a random thing that connected to, like the dumb soul accusation from the Padawan. So I don't think there's a random moment where, you know, like that somehow magically connects. So it's just like, okay, like, just okay. And that's a lot of the show. Just okay, that is what it is. That changes something. It adds to something. Some things do seem to be changed. You know, we just have to wait and see how it goes. I think as of now, aside from just the way they say things and just like the weird things that just make connections that they don't need, and the questions that we have, you know, like the Yoda not being able to sense it, other Jedi, you know, possibly not sensing it. In terms of what they tell and question and bring up, I do think it follows canon. We'll always have those questions of like, well, why didn't this happen? You know, like the Yoda thing will be the number one, like, why couldn't Yoda sense it? It does just seem super, super weird. So many Jedi died, even if they're super far away. It's like, Yoda's that guy. Like, that's his whole thing. If anyone's gonna know, you know, if Kamira was like, I used to be a Jedi, you know who would have known him? Yoda. Yoda knows everybody. That's just Yoda. Like, that's Yoda, you know? Like, that's how he's everyone's master splinter. He's green splinter, and he's perfect. That's Yoda. So it'll always be there. That question will just always be there, because that is the point of Yoda. He's almost all knowing. Obviously he's not, but it just doesn't seem dark side enough to cloud his judgment and make it hard for him to see that that's not what really happened. That question will be there, even for me personally. I'll get past it. I'll just watch what they watch because it is what it is. But all in all, they answered a lot of questions, and I'm okay with that. I'm still, unfortunately, just not like, nothing about them answering the questions will make me love the show. It's still gonna be, wow, it was great when they were fighting, and then as soon as they start talking, I'm just like, okay. It's spread out in the wrong ways. It's not really, in my personal opinion, done well as a mystery in any regard, honestly. So we'll see what happens, with the season 2. I don't know if we'll actually get one. Things are just so interesting, just up in the air as a whole, unlike my chair. Interesting as a whole. So we'll see what happens with the future of Star Wars on both ends. Well, one side does affect the other, so we will see when it comes from the fan side and how that starts chopping at that money hill. We might see some changes. Who's to say? But I am curious. I'm curious where things are gonna go. We get a season 2. I can see it. I understand it's stepping on toes, but so far, it's not breaking canon. Still does it does have its own loopholes, so in that sense, it can break canon because it has some of its own issues about things that are said and done. But I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a weird spot to be with Star Wars. Still gonna, everybody's always gonna love. I'm always gonna love Star Wars. I don't know how hard they would have to go for me to just be like, no, because after this, what's on my mind? The next Jedi game, Star Wars Outlaws. I'm feeling kind of hype. I've seen, based on what I saw, that's looking up. So we have our peaks with the Jedi games, absolute peaks, and we have our low valleys, so low. But hey, we saw a lightsaber bleed, and that's pretty sweet. And this fight was actually good, and all the questions were answered, whether you like them or not, unfortunately. So we shall see if we even get a season 2. Of course, I would love to know your thoughts on this very long video of mine. What you guys think of the Acolyte whole series? What would you change? What would you switch around? Like, my one thing with this whole season has just been the way they told the story. I feel like this story could easily have been accepted more if it was just, things were just rotated. I will die on the hill that episode 3 should have been the first episode, 100%. And much of episode 7 really was just like, dang, you guys did not give us a lot. You did not give us a lot. So we'll see. As I've said 100 times so far. But it'll be interesting. Star Wars going forward. It always seemed like this was the moment. And it was like, okay, The Last Jedi was kind of the thing that kicked it off. People had their issues. Book of Boba Fett was unfortunate. Things, peaks and valleys. The peaks have really just been the video games, I'll be honest. Well, the animation, no, Bad Batch was absolutely amazing. So all the animation has been like our peaks as of late. Andor was good as far as live action is concerned. Still waiting for that one for season 2. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a peak. First season was good, just to help the people that are still hurt right now. I know. But we've had our peaks, we've had our valleys. And I think it'll pick back up. But I do think this is a real deep valley for a lot of people, just for the franchise as a whole and support and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here, just as a fandom, on like the happiness and the anger of it all, and that'll be fun to watch. It'll be a good story, so I can appreciate that. At the very least, it'll be a good story. So we'll see how it all shakes out. The show, the fandom, all of Star Wars. But I would love to know what you guys think about the Acolyte, this finale, the future of Star Wars in general, but especially the Acolyte. Where are the characters going to go? What are they going to do with Osha? Is she going to stay good? Or is she going to stay bad? Is she going to ride the line? Is she just going to die? Is everyone just going to die? Because obviously they have the connection now with Kamir and Venestra, so that keeps her going. But if Plagueis is behind the scenes, how long does it take before he gets what he needs? And then nobody knows he's around. So some heads got to start rolling. And that might be the one great thing about this show, is that they can just keep killing people, because it's like no one is supposed to know at all. It's like the only thing is like, people gotta go. That's it. That's probably the only thing they could do, where it's like, who will live and who will die in the next season. Once again, I'm making up things that seem really cool for how they can do the show and still stay in canon. We'd like to know what you guys think though. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. I have a lot of other Star Wars content that you guys can check out. I would greatly appreciate that. If you ever see this at nearly 40 minutes or just over 40 minutes, thanks for watching this far. I really appreciate that. There's other fun Star Wars stuff on this channel. I will have a lot of pictures from my Star Wars games coming up for photo mode stuff if you guys care about that. If not, you will at least see some cool Star Wars pictures. So you can check that out. Enjoy Star Wars. It's still awesome. We're good. Star Wars will come back to where you want it to be at some point. But right now, I think we're doing all right. And we're gonna have some sweet games. Have some sweet shows at some point. I'm hoping for Revision season 3. That would be amazing. I hope they do. They aren't gonna do it, but I would love a full anime of that the 8th episode, which was actually called like The Ninth Jedi, I think, from volume 1. We'll love a full anime series on that. Sadly, I don't think that'll ever come to pass. Star Wars will be good. We'll be good. And we have everything that has already been good. So we got Star Wars. Thanks for checking this one out. If you guys have any comments, please put them down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.